Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the people checking the pulse of a much happier, relieved, excited Husker Nation. All right, the show is brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net, also carrikerchronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true, ladies and gentlemen. It is just science. All right, before we dive into this game, give the in-depth analytics, give our gut reaction, give our topical response, how we feel about this win. If you're like me and you don't mind, and a large part of this was due to the refs, FBI, do you know where the Big Ten headquarters is? Maybe pay them a visit. But if you don't mind, at least for now, that this was a butt-ugly game, but it was a beautiful win, and you feel how I feel, like a win today was a win, and that's a beautiful thing, smash the like button. As always, if you haven't done so yet, make sure you subscribe and or ring that notification bell if you want to support the channel. All right, also, like seriously, if you weren't thrilled with the reffing throughout the game, subscribe to this channel. Why? It makes no sense. It's just what I came up with. But here's the deal. Before we dive into the game, the four quarters, the analytics, the stats, and stuff like that, this was a win that Nebraska needed to have, was desperate to have, because imagine had we lost. And it was the type of game that Nebraska needed to win. We're going to play a different type of team next week in USC. Passing, finesse, talent, like more talented than Northwestern, maybe more talented than us. If you look at the recruiting rankings, they are. We needed someone who was going to come in here. This is like a Rocky movie, okay, where the championship fighter is like, he's won all these fights. He's beating the crap out of everybody. I don't know that we're beating the crap out of everybody, but he needs someone to come punch him in the mouth so he can prove toughness, that you can find a way to win, that you can bounce back, that you can win ugly, and that you can win a game 4 full quarters. And yes, there were ups and downs or ebbs and flows, but that you can show after the Minnesota debacle, where they curb stomped us, mollywopped, and embarrassed us, that you could come back and yes, this team has some toughness to them. Are we a flawed team? By good Lord, yes. But we've got the ability to win. The question was, how are the coaches going to coach? How were they going to take Rhule's press conference? How were they going to make adjustments? What adjustments were they going to make? What were they going to do? How were the players going to respond? I spoke to someone who's inside that program each and every day right before the game. He flat out said the vibe was weird this week. Didn't know how people were going to respond. Didn't know how the team was going to respond. The team played hard. The team fought back. The team made mistakes. The team is flawed. But the team found a way to win. A game they should win versus a team they should beat. And they were able to find a way to do it. Are we all of a sudden like national championship contenders, CFP contenders? Mathematically, technically, yes. But in reality, this is the type of game we needed to win. That's my humble takeaway initially. Let's go through the game. I want to see what you fine folks have to say. Let me know your thoughts, your questions, your comments, concerns in the comment section. First and foremost, were you just appalled at some of the calls in this game? And there was even a call late in the game that maybe went our way. It's about freaking time, by the way. Let me know your thoughts on the refs in the comments. Let's start to go through this thing and light this candle. Coming into the game, offensive lineman Gunnar Katula was questionable. He had started every game so far this year, the first 4 games at left tackle, the last 3 at right tackle. All right, Rocco Spindler did start, massively taped right hand as he just had surgery last Sunday. Okay, Teddy Prohaska got the start at right tackle. The first series, Northwestern gets the first down. Nebraska's D forces a punt. Okay, Emmett Johnson came out running the ball hard. He continued to run the ball hard. He ran the ball hard for 4 full quarters. It's official. These aren't my kids. I can have favorites. He's my favorite player on the team. He just is. He just is. All right, I don't know how else to put it. He's my favorite player on the team. He's your favorite player on the team. I'm asking a lot of questions. Let me know in the comments. All right. Early on, Nebraska was doing some things. They were shifting. They were doing motions. Tried to see what Northwestern was doing coverage-wise. Is it man-to-man? Is it zone? How are they bumping if it is man? Things of that nature. All right. Emmett, the first drive, he had the touchdown run. There was a 3rd and 2. There was a 4-yard run. He was getting hit in the backfield, and he was like a little pinball machine. He was getting yards. I don't want to say entirely on his own and by himself, but it was kind of entirely on his own and by himself, it felt at times. The dude just runs with violence and hate in his heart. Get him the ball more. All right, on that first drive, he had 6 carries for 38 yards and scored the touchdown to put us up 7-0. You know, we had 38 yards rushing that first drive. We had 36 total versus Minnesota. Emmett Johnson finishes a 9-play, 69-yard drive with a 9-yard touchdown run. All right. We had 14 total carries and 36 total yards last week versus Minnesota. Already surpassed some of those things in the first drive here versus Northwestern today. All right, let's see. Nebraska had 3 second and third down runs on that opening drive. That matched their entire total of second and third down runs from the last game. So we had 16 rushes versus Minnesota. 13 of them were on first down against Minnesota. So improvements, adjustments by the coaches, improvements by the players. I'm not convinced. Anyways, I was going to say I'm not convinced Minnesota's better than Northwestern. We just played better, although be it flawed. Now, the average yards gained on first down in that first drive was 9.4 yards on first down plays. That's huge, ladies and gentlemen. When is second 0.06? That's pretty good. Let's see. We had a couple of throws to Nyziah Hunter on that opening drive. The dude, him and Ja'Cory Barney are our two best receivers. Hopefully, Dane Key can emerge. Nyziah Hunter, by the way, sophomore, just like Ja'Cory Barney, sophomore, just like Dylan Raiola, sophomore, just like Emmett Johnson Jr. All these guys should be back next year. All right. A couple of big completions to Nyziah on that opening drive. Northwestern pulls within 7-3 behind a 40-yard field goal. All right. They did give up a 37-yard completion to Griffin Wild, Northwestern's best receiver, unequivocally their best receiver. All right, during that drive as well. But it was a 9-play, 53-yard drive that took 4:21 off the clock. Again, 3:28 left in the first quarter. The good guys 7, the other guys 3. They were running EJ, Emmett Johnson, out of different formations. They even went 4 wide receivers, 10 personnel, 1 running back, 4 wide receivers, and we're running it with Emmett at certain points in the first half as well. All right. One of those wide receivers was Heinrich Harburg. I should mention that. At the end of the first quarter, it's 7-3. Emmett Johnson already had 8 carries for 54 yards and a touchdown in just the first quarter. It reminded me a lot of the Maryland game when it came to how Dana Holgerson was calling the game. Let's see what we got here. Harburg did go in for a couple of plays at quarterback. We had the tush-push first down. Okay, and I think he may have done this once or twice. Maybe have to check the film, but I know he did it at least once, if not twice. Tush-push for a first down. A couple of runs as a quarterback to help Nebraska on the ground, especially in those short yardage situations. I made this little note. Raiola had a couple of passes he threw away out of bounds to some small cheers. Hey, we'll take progress any way we can get it. At the end of the first quarter, it was 100 total yards for Nebraska, 67 for Northwestern. Both teams had the ball for exactly 7 minutes and 30 seconds. All right, here's what I wrote. 4th and 1 tush-push conversion at Northwestern's 25. Harburg under center. 2 fourth down conversions so far with Harburg at quarterback. Also, the last time Nebraska played Northwestern in Lincoln 2 years ago, Harburg was actually our starting quarterback, if you remember that day. Our ensuing drive, when we get the ball, Teddy Prohaska gets ran over. Dylan Raiola gets sacked. Prohaska looks like he hurt his knee? I forget, but he had to come out of the game. Turner Corcoran came in to the game. It looked like Tyler Canuck was going to come in, then Corcoran came in. Another guy who's been here for like 8,000 years. Okay, I want to give a shout out to our sponsors before we proceed forward. Shout out to DPS Concrete Construction. They're your local concrete and retaining wall experts. Nobody does it better. Again, said it before, I'll say it again. If this is the type of work you want done, concrete retaining wall work, go to dpsconstruction.net. If this is the type of work you do, Jason Armstrong, the owner, is the guy you want to work for. Go to dpsconstruction.net. Also, shout out to Husker Auto Group. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC have aggressive pricing on 2025 model Silverados and Sierras, up to $11,000 off of MSRP. APR as low as 2.9% financing with approved credit. See dealer for details. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC also has a great selection of 3/4-ton Silverado and Sierra trucks. Husker, Chevrolet, and GMC is locally owned and operated. Husker Auto Group is conveniently located off North 27th Street at I-80 in North Lincoln. Also available 24/7 at huskerautogroup.com. All right, let's get a couple of your questions before we move on going forward. All right, Lionel, I hope I'm saying that right. Lionel Miller, we were in Iowa listening to the game while attending our granddaughter's softball game. And no, I did not turn the column down. I don't know what that means. And snatching victory from the jaws of defeat. Real men where Kilts TV says that. I don't know that we snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. This is the 4th straight game where we have, well, not straight because we didn't have a double-digit lead versus Minnesota, but it's the 4th time in 4 games, because we did this twice versus Maryland, that we have lost a double-digit lead. but we took it back. I don't think Northwestern ever led during this game, now that I think about it. Okay, they tied it, but I don't think at 21-21, but I don't think they ever actually led. Our next drive, Kyle Cunanan unfortunately missed a 44-yard field goal. We left points on the field. We missed another field goal with Kyle Cunanan. He had made 8 straight kicks prior to this. It was a 14-play, 40-yard drive that took 7:37 off the clock, and then we missed the field goal. That's painful. And then the drive right before half, we go for it on 4th and 1. Honestly, probably should have just ran power again, but did a little play action pass, wanted to do a little boot, get Dylan Raiola out on the edge, throw the ball into the flats, maybe have a little flood action where you have a receiver into the flats, then you have another one about 8 to 10 yards deep, and then a deep corner route about 15 to 20 yards downfield. But Dylan had to scramble, ends up fumbling the ball. We lost it. So we left more points on the field than this. The refs certainly had an effect on the points. I thought this was a poorly officiated game. Unfortunately, this has become an all too frequent occurrence in college football. You may have, if you follow me on social media, all right, X, Facebook, TikTok, hashtag cheap plug, come follow me. The SEC permanently suspended. Doesn't that mean banned, by the way? But the wording was permanently suspended the crew that officiated the Oklahoma-Auburn game from a couple of weeks ago because it was so atrociously atrocious. We've got to nickel and dime officiating in a $1 billion industry. These guys are not full-time. Different things are emphasized in the Big 12 versus the SEC versus the ACC versus the Big 10. And now you got cross-conference games. You got officials officiating different conference games. And even then within their conference, is it on them? I think it's more on the system that they're put in. They're not full-time. There's no accountability. Teenage players have to sit up front and answer questions at a post-game press conference. Why don't grown men, aka referees? Also, why is it not just an opportunity to explain what you did, just like coaches and players? Maybe fans would feel better if they could get answers and have accountability. Like, oh, okay, now I see where you're coming from. Maybe you're right. Or maybe you're still freaking wrong, but now at least I see where you're coming from. Sometimes no answer is the worst answer of all. I'm going to move on. Okay. There was, let's see, Northwestern hits a 25-yard field goal to cut into Nebraska's lead. The Wildcats go 15 plays, 67 yards, and 7:43. I think Nebraska only had the ball 3 times in the first half. I think each team only had the ball 3 times in the first half. These were some lengthy drives. All right, 3:01 left, Nebraska 7, Northwestern 6. It's pretty much the type of game you expected it to be. It was sloppy, it was ugly, it was a grinder, it was a battle. It was the type of game Nebraska needed to have after Minnesota. And it was the type of game they needed to win. Also, they really just needed to win. But they needed to win this type of game. When you think about the difference that Dana Holgorsen, and yes, I think he's kind of adjusting as the year goes along as well. I feel like the game he called versus Maryland and versus today versus Northwestern was exponentially better than Minnesota. You could argue even better than against Michigan State. Michigan State's just really bad. He's growing and learning at what this team can do as well. He's obviously a good offensive coordinator. But you look at the difference he's made with Dylan Raiola specifically. Before Dana Holgorsen, Dylan Raiola had 10 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. It was complete and under 65% of his passes. All right, he was averaging 213.4 pass yards per game. Since Dana, he's got a 2-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, which is the minimum you want to have to be considered a good quarterback. Okay, completion percentage of 72.4, so it jumped up almost 9%. And his passing yards per game jumped up by about 30 yards as well, 242.4 yards per game. Now, again, this is where the Huskers are at the Northwestern 35 with 2 minutes left in the half. Another nice drive. Nebraska goes for it on 4th down in the half, and this is the one where Dylan scrambles, fumbles, and we go into halftime 7-6. And this was too many drives that we had up to this point where we hadn't put points on the board, but we do get the ball to start the second half. All right, and I was curious, 7-6. Physical, tough team, going to play good defense, run the ball. They're not more talented than us, but are they better at football than us? It was like Minnesota all over again. How is this team going to respond? That's what I was curious to see. Now, the halftime stats real quick. On 3rd down conversions, Nebraska was converting 20% of their 3rd downs in the first half, Northwestern 63%. Until our last offensive drive, they were dominating us in the 3rd down conversion percentage, but we'll get to that later. Total yards, we had 160, they had 137. Pass yards, we had 69, they had 67. Rush yards is where we actually had the advantage, 93-68. Penalties, we actually had 0. We ended up with 4. They ended up with 3. They had 1 at halftime. So relatively, when it comes to penalties, a very disciplined game by both teams. Nebraska, knock on wood, does not beat themselves with penalties. this year. Turnovers, we had 1, they had 0. That was the Dillon fumble before halftime. Dylan Raiola at halftime was 7 of 10. 6.7 yards per pass attempt, and Emmett Johnson 65 yards, 5.4 yards per rush, and 1 rushing touchdown. In my opinion, he's the MVP of this team right now. The guy who wasn't even our starting running back at this time last year is now the MVP. I don't know why I whispered that. It was pause for effect. All right, let's see what we got here. Kenneth Williams. I'm so glad they have not gotten rid of walk-ons in college football. This is my own tweet. All right, I'm just going to read my own tweet. I love walk-ons, still have a place in college football. My brother-in-law's a walk-on, by the way. That's how I met my wife. Kenneth Williams shows why our special teams are so much better this year. Nebraska's first kickoff return for a touchdown since J.D. Spielman in 2017 versus Arkansas State. He houses it 95 yards, ladies and gentlemen. Nebraska's up 14-6. He's earning that Scully now. All right, Nebraska forces a punt. Preston Stone of Northwestern struggled. Barely completed over 50% of his passes. Not a lot of passing yards. 2 ugly interceptions. Thank you very much. Michael Severe, to his credit, he said when I interviewed him on my Adam Carriker show on 93.7 The Ticket on Tuesday earlier this week, I said, what are your keys to the game? First thing he said, when Preston Stone throws you the ball, catch it. I was like, whoa. He's pretty much guaranteeing interceptions. 2. Michael Severe, the prophet. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. 14-6. Now, Nebraska did try a jumbo set where they had an extra offensive lineman on the field. That was Tyler Canuck, who lined up, I believe, next to Turner Corcoran. I'd have to go back and watch it again. But they were trying to do some different things. Harburg at quarterback, jumbo sets. Okay. They tried an RPO later on. Unfortunately, Raiola did throw an interception. In fact, this is it. Nope. This is our interception. All right. Donovan Jones, great one-on-one open field tackle later in the game where it's him the back, and he got him down one-on-one. Wide receiver blocked down, which left the back one-on-one with a corner, which is an offense's dream and a defense's nightmare, and Donovan took him down. Here he got the interception. Again, a bad throw from Stone, who was pressured by McCullough, and Wild, their best wide receiver, is actually open on the cross. All right, Nebraska responds. Nyziah Hunter with his 3rd fade ball touchdown of the year, and he has 5 touchdown receptions on the year so far as well. Nebraska's up 21-6, and at this point in time, I said, do I dare allow myself to feel like we're definitely going to win this game? I'm not going to lie, I did. Lesson learned again. All right, Raiola hit Nyziah Hunter for a 12-yard touchdown, toe-tapping touchdown, I might add. 7:39 left in the third quarter, Nebraska 21, Northwestern 6. The next Northwestern offensive drive was where the refs got crazy. I already did a diatribe on them, so I'm just going to go through this. Riley Van Poppel stemmed from a 3 technique to a 0 over the nose. As a nose guard over the center, their right guard moved. You can move laterally. A stem is when you move from one spot to another as a defensive lineman, from the C gap to the B gap to the A gap to whatever. A lot of times you're trying to get a lineman to move. You're trying to throw off their blocking scheme. You got someone who's going to come off your butt and you're moving late, or you're going to stunt. You're allowed to do that. They said we were offside. Rhule was furious, and he had every right to be. Okay, then the refs gave Northwestern a first down. Basically, they caught the ball, but dropped it, but juggled it, but caught it, but he was marked short, but then they moved it, and then they reviewed it. Long story short, they said it was a first down for Northwestern. The fans were not pleased. At this point, Northwestern was 6 of 11 on 3rd down. Nebraska was 1 of 6. It was essentially a double catch, poorly marked. How they got the first down, I don't know. Brutally upheld on the 4th down play, leads to a Northwestern touchdown. I think 2 plays later, the crowd started chanting, refs, you suck, refs, you suck, refs, you suck. 21-13, Nebraska still leads. 2:25 left in the third quarter. All right, I should mention that drive, special teams played well. From punt returns to kick returns, overall, Archie Wilson actually pinned Northwestern with a 54-yard punt inside its own 15, and they still ended up, with some help, scoring. And credit to Northwestern. They never gave up. They never let up, as we knew that they would keep fighting. All right, I want to give another shout-out to our sponsors, Allen Capital Group. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. All right, if you're searching for a financial planner who is rooted in homegrown Nebraska business, or in homegrown Nebraska values, I apologize. All right, they have offices in Grand Island, Ogallala, Scottsbluff, Omaha. All right, they will work to understand what is meaningful to you and your financial needs, wants, and wishes. They personally help my family, and I put our mind at ease, have a great peace. Finances can be a very stressful thing. By by managing our finances for over a decade. They're smart, they know what they're doing, they have high integrity, and they prioritize what their client wants, nothing else. They're the folks you want to work with, the folks you want working for you. Check them out at allencapgroup.com. That's ALLENCAP group.com. Allen Capital Group, next level solutions for next level needs. All right. I wrote here, we are a very talented team with some big holes. That was my note at this point in the game. Also, Preston Stone, it's interesting. Coming into this game, Northwestern was 5-2. In their 5 wins, he had 10 touchdown passes, 1 interception. In their 2 losses before today, 0 touchdown passes, 6 interceptions. Funny how that works. All right, with the fourth quarter starting, Nebraska's up 21-13. Nebraska's offense seemed to be gaining a little bit of momentum, a little bit of steam, with a chance, honestly, to kind of put the game away here. It was 4th and inches at our 42. I was surprised Matt Rhule didn't go for it. He punted, though. Remember the Cincinnati game when he went for it and it didn't work out? You watch Minnesota last week play it insanely tightly to the vest. Maybe Matt Rhule's changed. Maybe it was just this game in particular. I don't know. Northwestern, they're going to go down and score. There's a pass interference penalty on Andrew Marshall that was kind of hokey. I'm trying not to talk about the refs, but these are my notes as I'm going through it. All right, Caleb Komolafe has a 56-yard touchdown run, so it's like a 3rd and short, 4th and short, and the whole defense is bunched in, and everyone's coming in. It's an inside run, and he all of a sudden bounces out, and then you see some Nebraska defenders all bunched in. Nobody's on the edge anymore. Nobody's keeping leveraging everything inside. They actually kind of trip over themselves, and he busts outside for a 56-yard touchdown. I'd have to double check this. I don't know that we have played a Big Ten game yet this year where we have not allowed a touchdown run of 50 yards or more. I think we've done it in every single Big Ten contest so far this year, allowed it. Unfortunately, I'd have to go back and double check that, though. All right. And they looked very disorganized on the 2-point conversion. In fact, we had a guy running halfway across the field as the ball was being snapped. Northwestern ties it up 21-21. They have now scored 15 straight unanswered points, 11-16 left in the game. Nebraska was not getting a lot of pressure on their quarterback at this point. We had no sacks, no TFLs, only 1 quarterback hurry in the entire game. We did have the 1 interception and 2 pass breakups at that point. All right. Oh, this is where the RPO, run pass option. Raiola does the ride with the running back. He's basically staring at who he's going to throw out the whole time. He throws the interception. Northwestern picks it off. Okay. There was really kind of an orbit motion with Ja'Cory Barney, and I thought Raiola was going to hit him, where the orbit motion goes behind the receiver. You hit him with some space out wide, and they can make people move. That's not what they did. Now, Northwestern actually had a big run called back. It was a pancake block. It looked like a legit pancake block of our guy, but they called him for holding, so they called it back. Nebraska gets an interception. Javin Wright picks one off. It was pretty much thrown right at him by Stone. Again, Stone did not play very well. Thank you, Stone. All right, he was trying to hit his best wide receiver Wild with a deep pass. It just didn't work. All right, here we go. Nebraska ball, 9:30 left in the game. Tie game, our 36-yard line. What are we going to do? And here's some random notes and stuff up to this point in the game right here that I made to myself. All right, our interior D-line was getting pushed around too much in this game so far. Our O-line was not getting much push. Plus, we really need to play better at offensive tackle. We flat out just need to play better at offensive tackle. And a lot of Emmett Johnson's yards came by him fighting on his own, if we're being honest. All right. Raiola, this is where I think we went like 4 for 4 on 3rd downs. And like 3 of them were 3rd and 7. So they were 3rd and long. And we went 4 for 4. Raiola evaded some pressure on the first one, converted the 3rd down. All right, basically, this may have been the drive of the year for Nebraska football. I don't want to say this saved Nebraska's season, but if we lose this game and we don't score on this drive and we're 5-3, things look. Who would have thought Penn State would turn into Penn State this year? I'm not saying that's what would have happened, but it would have been the conversation. All right, Raiola responded from the interception, took us down the field, 4 for 4 on 3rd down, 3 for 3 on 3rd and 7 in the next drive. And it actually brought both teams up to a 50% conversion rate on 3rd down equally at this point in time of the game. All right. Unfortunately, Raiola was 0 of 4 on passes of 15 yards or more at this point. So we got to get better at the deep ball. We got to stretch defenses. He was 1 of 5 last week. So he's one of his last 10 combined over the past 2 games, for passes of 15 yards or more. But we go down the field, 28-21. Raiola was money the whole drive. Okay. The receivers played great. Nebraska scores a touchdown, 2:44 left. And I thought of these Matt Rhule quotes. All right, from his Monday press conference. And I quote, good teams don't lose 2 in a row, end quote. Another one, and I quote, every team is going to be ready to play us. We better be ready to play, end quote. Another Matt Rhule quote, when you get punched in the mouth, you have 2 choices. You can step back or you can fight back, end quote, Matt Rhule. And I thought of all those quotes, right? That's why, I mean, that's exactly what it says right there at this point in time. And I made that note. We're up 28-21. Northwestern's trying to come back to score, to tie the game. Javin Wright with the pressure. Their quarterback throws another crazy ball to Wild, their best receiver. Nebraska intercepts it. Nebraska closes out the win. The good guys get 28. The other guys 21. We have now qualified for a bowl game. Before November, we're 6-2 for the first time since 2016. Nebraska produces a memorable scoring drive on offense and gets a key stop at the end on defense to get the win. Again, we are now 6-2. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to your questions, your thoughts, your comments, your concerns before I give my final thoughts at the end of this video. Northwestern got an extra touchdown thanks to the Zebras playing for them. There's an argument to be made for them for that. You're absolutely right. There were some bad calls both ways. I feel like it helped Northwestern a lot more. This game, honestly, could have been a double-digit win for us, but it is what it is. I've already ranted. Time to move on from that. I don't feel bad one bit for that no call. Oh, at the end where we kind of grabbed their receiver and they wanted the call, I don't feel bad either. Yeah, after the amount of calls that went that way, I agree with you. All right, let's see. Let's move on from the refs. Let's see what else we got here. A lot of stuff about the refs, and let's move on from the refs a little bit. It is what it is. All right, here are my final thoughts on the game. Before I give them, I want to give one last shout out to another sponsor, 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. 626autoservice.com is where you can check them out. 2405 Peach Street in good old Lincoln, Nebraska. Locally owned for 20 years. Ask for Dean Phelps. He's the owner. Good dude. You can trust what he says. Very knowledgeable. Or ask for Eric or Jeff when you go in. Tell them that Adam sent you. They do great work at a very reasonable price. As you know, we now have kids who are driving. It's where my family, my wife, myself, my kids who are driving, we all take our cars to be taken care of. Everything from oil changes to engine replacements. They offer shuttle rides, loaner vehicles, and financing as well. Again, that's 626 Auto Service in Lincoln. Check them out at 626autoservice.com. I'd always give a shout out to Husker Auto Group as well. They do a phenomenal job as well. Check them out at huskerautogroup.com. If you want to follow me on social medias, you can follow me on X, Facebook, TikTok. I think I already mentioned that. Here are my final thoughts. Nebraska's a talented team. That means you have the ability to play well, but it doesn't mean your floor isn't low too. Nebraska is a flawed team. We aren't that team that's going to just push you around with our offensive line. We're not that team that's going to just knock you back with our defensive line. What we are is we've got athletes in space. If you give them the ball in space, they can make plays. We have a running back who is an all Big Ten type running back. First, second, third team, I don't know, but he's an all Big Ten type running back. He finds yards no matter what. You've got to get him the ball no matter what. Whether there's holes or not, get him the rock. Get him the rock. Dylan Raiola, when it comes to game-winning touchdown drives so far this year, he's 2 for 2. When it comes to the fourth quarter, his stats are really good, and I'll dive into him more later this week. I don't know that he's 100% clutch, but he is becoming clutch, and I've talked about this before. So you got a quarterback becoming clutch. You got a running back that refuses to be tackled. You've got athletes in space. You got a good pass defense. You got great special teams. You've got issues up front. Dana Holgerson is a great coordinator. Game plan, just like you did for Maryland. Game plan, just like you did for today versus Northwestern. And work around those holes that you've got. Butler, you got to work with, I don't want to say holes on the defensive line, but an undersized, smaller defensive line. A year from now, they're all going to be back except for one guy, Elijah Judy. Another year in the weight room, another year of experience. They might actually be pretty good up front. So we'll see. But you got to work around certain things. But this was a toughness game. This was I'm going to look in the mirror and what do I got game. This was we have to prove it to ourselves game. They had to look in the mirror and know that we should beat this team. They're going to hit us in the mouth. They're going to kick us in the groin. I'm not saying Northwestern's dirty. I'm saying they're going to find any way they can to win. And we got to find a way to win because we should win. And it's going to be butt ugly, but they got to win. And that is what's beautiful. Those are my thoughts. A lot more other stuff about the refs. I'm going to let that go. If you had to prioritize one position to hit hard in recruiting, which position would it be? That's via Dan the Man. Dan the Man, it's the offensive line. Go, Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the ball.